Have you ever noticed how your adult child avoids coming home? Even when you've done everything right? You raised them, supported them, stood by them through their ups and downs. Yet they seem uncomfortable, even irritated, by your presence. Maybe they find excuses not to visit, or maybe when they do show up, they rush through the conversation, glued to their phones, itching to leave. And you're left wondering, what happened to the bond we once had? If that's something you've felt lately, you're not alone. Many parents in your generation are quietly experiencing the same heartbreak, especially when their children exhibit certain difficult patterns. Today, we're going to talk about one of the more hidden reasons behind this behavior, why some adult children, particularly those with strong entitlement or self-centered traits, just don't like being at home. And no, it's not because of you. In fact, it's usually got nothing to do with what you've done or haven't done. It has everything to do with what being home means to them. Because for some people, coming home doesn't feel peaceful. It feels threatening. And not because of the furniture or the layout of your living room or even any conflict in your history. It's deeper than that. It's about what home represents: silence, stillness, honesty, and emotional connection. And those are the exact things they've been running from their whole lives. You see, some people are terrified of being with themselves. They may look confident on the outside, always busy, full of plans, stories, drama, ambition. But take away the noise, and what's left? A deep inner emptiness they don't want to confront. When they come to your home, a place that's often quiet, safe, reflective, it exposes them. There's no crowd to impress, no endless stream of stimulation, no chance to perform or manipulate attention. Just you and them and the weight of a truth they've been avoiding. Staying at home means slowing down. It means facing the mirror of their own choices. For someone who has spent their life avoiding accountability or masking insecurity with busyness, that's incredibly uncomfortable. Home becomes less of a haven and more of a threat. They'll never say it like that, of course. They may complain that your house is boring or that there's nothing to do here. But what they're really saying is, this place makes me feel things I don't want to feel. They don't like stillness because in stillness, the truth starts to whisper. And one of the loudest truths, that the way they treat you isn't as kind as it should be. That maybe, just maybe, their constant need for validation and control is pushing people away. But instead of facing that truth, they escape it. And where do they escape to? Anywhere but here. They chase stimulation like it's oxygen. New experiences, new people, new environments. They crave attention, excitement, and chaos. Because it distracts them from the quiet voice inside. You'll see it in how they bounce from relationship to relationship, or how they constantly post online, trying to stay visible, or how they're always planning something, even if it's just an excuse not to sit still. They live in a go, go, go state. One thing ends, another begins. And if there's a gap in between, they'll fill it. Because silence feels like suffocation. Stillness feels like drowning. That's why they may come into your home and feel off, restless, critical, detached. The space you've lovingly created doesn't give them what they're addicted to, which is stimulation, not connection. So instead of appreciating the warmth and history of home, they retreat, distract, or disappear altogether. And the hardest part? They might make you feel like you're the problem. They may suggest that you're too much or too needy or too traditional. But that's a deflection. The truth is, they just can't be present with someone who sees them too clearly. And as a parent, whether you say it out loud or not, your presence holds a mirror they can't stand. Now you might be thinking, but my child doesn't go anywhere. They're always home. Too much even. They live in the basement, or they haven't moved out, or they never help with anything but are always glued to their phone or video games. And you're right, some of them don't physically go out, but they're still constantly running. They may not leave the house, but they're not present either. They live through screens, They bury themselves in distractions. They avoid real conversations. They dodge emotional intimacy like it's poison. So even when they're home, it doesn't feel like they're with you, because mentally and emotionally, they're somewhere else. This too comes from the same root, the need to escape from what's inside, whether through endless errands or endless scrolling. The point is to keep the mind too busy to reflect. And I know this might hurt to hear. It might sound cold or hopeless. But here's what I want you to remember. You're not the cause of this behavior. Your home didn't become uncomfortable because you made it that way. It became uncomfortable because it asks for something your child no longer wants to give: presence, accountability, and authenticity. And while you can't control their behavior, you can control how you respond to it. You can stop blaming yourself. You can stop chasing after their attention. You can reclaim your space, not just your physical home, but your emotional peace. There's something unsettling about watching someone constantly chase things outside themselves: attention, drama, novelty, and yet never seem satisfied. It's like they're always moving, always searching, but never arriving anywhere. And if that someone is your own child, it can be especially painful to witness. What's behind this need for constant movement, for stimulation, for more? It's emptiness. Now, I don't mean that in a dramatic or insulting way. I'm talking about a very real emotional gap, a kind of hollowness inside that no amount of success, money, followers, vacations, or admiration can ever seem to fill. And this emptiness often begins when a person avoids the most important relationship they'll ever have, the one with themselves. For a long time, your child may have learned to cope by performing, being charming, appearing strong, putting on a good face in front of others. But that performance comes at a cost. When the applause fades or the room empties out, they're left with themselves. And they don't like what they feel, so they run, not always with their feet, but with their focus. They keep their calendar packed, their phone always on, their mind racing. They scroll endlessly, text constantly, start conflicts out of nowhere. Anything to stay busy, anything to stay numb. And it works, at least for a while. But the moment they enter a space that doesn't support the chaos, like your home, the discomfort creeps in. It's too quiet, too stable, too real. And they don't know how to sit with that. They might fidget, criticize, stir up an argument just to create noise. Or they might simply disappear, claiming they're too busy to come by, when really, they're too uncomfortable to stay. There's something else too, something many parents don't realize. Your presence, your steadiness, your simplicity, it threatens the fragile identity your child has built, because you remind them of the truth of where they came from, the truth of who they used to be. And in some strange way, that truth makes them feel small, not because you did anything wrong, but because their sense of self isn't rooted in anything stable. They're always comparing, always compensating, always afraid they'll be found out as less than what they portray. And in that mental state, home isn't comforting, it's confronting. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Some adult children don't chase stimulation by going out into the world. Instead, they bring the world into their hands through screens, gossip, conflict, and virtual noise. They might live in your basement, or next door, or even under the same roof, yet you barely speak. They're in the house but absent from your life. They retreat behind headphones, video games, endless phone calls. They scroll through social media like it's their job. And you're left wondering, how can someone be so physically close yet feel so far away? The answer is the same. They're running from stillness, running from reflection, running from the possibility that if they slowed down, the emptiness might rise up and swallow them. So what do they do instead? They fill their days with noise, maybe not literal noise, though sometimes that too, but distractions. Fast food, fast entertainment, fast responses, fast everything. Because slowness would require feeling, and feeling would require honesty. And that feels dangerous to someone who has built their identity on being untouchable. But you, as their parent, you represent something they can't escape so easily. You represent history. You know them in ways no one else does. You remember when they were vulnerable, when they cried, when they needed you, when they made mistakes. And for some people, especially those who haven't come to peace with their own past, that kind of witness is unbearable. So rather than connect with you, they push you away. Not always directly. Sometimes it's subtle. They just don't have time, or they forget to call, or they snap at you for no reason. But the goal is always the same. Distance. Distance from what home feels like. Distance from the parts of themselves they don't want to see. And maybe that explains why the relationship feels one-sided now. Why you're always the one reaching out. Always the one inviting. Always the one giving the benefit of the doubt. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're loving. But love, when it isn't returned, becomes a burden. And over time, that burden gets heavy. Let me say something clearly, because I know someone watching this needs to hear it. You don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. You've done your part. You've opened your door. You've made the effort. And if your child chooses to remain distant, emotionally or physically, that's their decision. You don't need to twist yourself in knots trying to figure out why. What you can do is focus on your own peace. Reclaim your home as a sanctuary, not a battlefield. Surround yourself with people who value stillness, who enjoy your company without needing to be entertained, who don't make you feel like love is something you have to earn. Because here's something powerful. You get to decide what home means now. It doesn't have to be a place of waiting for them to come back, to change, to love you the way you hoped they would. Home can be your space of healing, of rest, of new beginnings. And no matter how far they run, no matter how loud their life gets, one day, that silence they fear will catch up to them. And when it does, it won't be your job to fix it. It's a painful thing, isn't it? To look at your own child and realize that the distance between you isn't measured in miles, but in emotion. You can stand in the same room and still feel like strangers. And you begin to wonder if there's something wrong with you, something you could have done differently, something you should fix even now. But the truth is, their discomfort with home has never been a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their internal world, a world they've been trying to outrun for years. Some people spend their entire lives avoiding themselves. They distract, they perform, they create chaos, because facing the quiet feels like stepping into a storm. That deep inner restlessness they carry doesn't go away just because they're in a different place. It follows them everywhere. And when they step into a home like yours, peaceful, steady, real, all the noise they've been using to drown out their feelings suddenly isn't enough. The quiet presses in, the truth presses in, and they feel exposed in a way they don't know how to handle. So they pull away, they rush the visit, they criticize something small, they pick a fight, they say they're too busy, or they never show up at all. It isn't about your cooking, your home decor, your traditions, or your personality. It's about the fact that being with you requires authenticity. And authenticity is something they haven't allowed themselves to feel in a long time. Some of them haven't felt it since childhood. And even when they stay at home physically, they never let themselves truly settle. They're glued to screens, avoiding eye contact, consumed by online drama, endlessly scrolling or arguing with strangers on the internet. Hours pass, but no real connection forms. They aren't present because presence would mean noticing the discomfort inside, and they'd rather distract themselves than confront that. You may have spent years hoping that one day something might shift. Maybe they'd slow down, soften, come back to themselves, come back to you. It's natural to hope that. Every parent does. Love doesn't just switch off. But as the years go by, you start to realize something important. Their journey is their own. Their healing is their own. Their choices, even the hurtful ones, are their own. And your life is still yours. You don't have to put your joy on hold, waiting for them to appreciate you. You don't have to shape your home into something less warm, less peaceful, less you, just to make them comfortable. Your home doesn't need to match their chaos. Your heart doesn't need to match their emotional speed. You get to breathe at your own pace. You get to live in a way that feels good to you. There's a quiet kind of strength in accepting that someone you love is running from themselves, and that you can't outrun it for them. You can still love them, but from a place that doesn't drain you. You can still hope for them, but without sacrificing your peace. You can still be open, but with boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. And here's something I want you to truly let sink in. Your child's inability to be present with you is not a measure of your value. Your worth is not determined by how often they visit, how long they stay, or how much affection they show. Your value was never meant to be judged by someone else's emotional instability. You have lived a long life. You have overcome hardships they will never fully understand. You have built a home filled with memories, wisdom, resilience, and love. A home that deserves to be honored. A home that deserves peace. And peace is something you are allowed to claim. There comes a moment, somewhere after 60, 70, or even 80, when you realize that the chapters ahead of you matter just as much as the chapters behind. Maybe even more. You've given so much of yourself already. Now it's time to give something back to yourself. Fill your home with people who enjoy your company. Call the friend who always makes you laugh. Invite neighbors for a simple afternoon chat. Spend your mornings with a good book, your evenings with music you love. Take walks, plant flowers, join a group that brings you joy. Build a life that feels complete, even if your child chooses not to be part of it right now. Peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from nurturing yourself. And here's the beautiful part. When you begin to reclaim your peace, something inside you shifts. You stop blaming yourself. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop questioning your worth. You begin to shine again, in a softer, stronger way. And sometimes that shift becomes the very thing that wakes others up. Sometimes distance becomes clarity. Sometimes clarity becomes change. But even if it doesn't, you will have something far more important. Your dignity, your serenity, your life. So as you sit here with me now, take a breath. Let the weight on your shoulders loosen just a little. Let the truth settle gently into your heart. None of this makes you a bad parent. None of this means you've failed. What it means is that you are human, and your child is human. And every human has a journey. Some just take longer paths than others. And wherever their path leads, your own path still matters. If this conversation spoke to you, I would love to hear your thoughts or your experiences in the comments. So many seniors feel alone in these struggles, and your voice could be the one that comforts someone else who needs to hear they're not the only one going through it. If you found value in this message, please consider liking the video and subscribing to Strong Elderly Life, where we talk about healing, boundaries, emotional strength, and living with dignity at every age. Your support helps this community grow and helps more older adults feel seen, understood, and empowered. Here's to your peace, here's to your strength, and here's to living your best life, no matter what anyone else chooses to do.